Hello, everybody. I'm Jamie Harrison, the host for the first hour of our broadcast here. You know, tonight, as the president delivers the State of the Union, we are really focused on something just as important: the state of the people, particularly Black people. You know, Congress matters, my friends. Article 1 of the Constitution begins with Congress because it is the branch closest to the people. It writes the laws, it controls the purse, it determines whether rights are protected or stripped away. And within Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus has served as the conscience of the institution since 1971. This session of Congress began with 62 Black members, the largest number in American history. And that includes 4 Black United States senators, 2 Black men and 2 Black women. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because people organized, people voted, people marched, people refused to be silenced. From Shirley Chisholm declaring she was unbought and unbossed, to John Lewis urging us to make good trouble, to the leaders you will hear from tonight. The CBC has stood at the center of every major fight for voting rights, economic justice, healthcare access, immigration reform, and democratic accountability. And tonight, several members have chosen not to attend the State of the Union address, choosing instead to stand in solidarity with communities who feel unheard and unseen. For the next hour, we are bringing you their voices directly. This is State of the People. Let's begin tonight's conversation. Folks, I'm really pleased about this next person, the first person that we're going to bring up. I call him the boss. He's my political father, but he has a new nickname now around Capitol Hill. He is the quarter zip OG. I want you all to welcome Representative Jim Clyburn, who has represented South Carolina's 6th congressional district for a number of years. And again, I call him my boss, but he is my mentor and my friend. Congressman, welcome to State of the People.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jimmy. I am looking forward to the conversation.
Well, boss, you have, I particularly want to talk about voting rights right now. And I'm sure Donald Trump won't say a word about voting rights in this country, but we know that voting rights are imperiled once again in this country. You've called voting rights the defining issue of our time, and we got several Supreme Court challenges that are pending right now. Can you just tell us what is at stake right now?
Well, I think that what we need to do is look at a little bit of history here. As you know, I recently published a book that I call The First 8. It's about those 8 African Americans that served in Congress from South Carolina before me. Now, the problem is there are 95 years between number 8 and yours truly, number 9. How did that come about? It came about because over time, the Congress, as well as the courts, just ate away after people's voting rights. And after Reconstruction, a lot of creative devices were used to keep people from voting. A lot of people think it's a joke. But at the time of the crossing of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, John Lewis and Hosea Williams and others went across that bridge. Only 3% of Blacks in Alabama were registered to vote when they had 40% of the population.
Wow. And
so these little devices, full slate voting, majority runoff requirements, tell me how many bubbles is in a bar of soap, how many jelly beans are in that jar. All of these demeaning methods were used. Well, thanks to Lyndon Johnson and Democrats, 1965 Voting Rights Act brought all that to an end. And that came about as a result of that march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Now, over time, we see what that has yielded. You just talked about 62 African Americans in the House of Rep, in the Congress, for the senators and the others in the House. All of a sudden now, the Supreme Court has said, well, maybe we don't need this anymore. And they have, for the last 12 years, been chipping at that bill. They got rid of Section 4 that allows Section 5 to oversee the voting. The Supreme Court threw that out, saying we don't need that anymore. And now they're looking at a challenge to Section 2, which will then allow Congress and state legislators to draw lines that will draw people out of their districts. They're drawing new lines. Well, they've introduced a bill in South Carolina. They've drawn new lines in North Carolina. They're trying to do the same thing in Missouri. And what does that mean? That means that we could very well see in the not too distant future a repeat of what happened after Reconstruction when South Carolina went from 8 Congress people down to 0 and went for 95 years at 0. That is what we'll face. That's why we just can't let little things go by and not pay close attention to them. Because for 12 years now, we have not paid a whole lot of attention to what the Supreme Court was doing. Now, all of a sudden, the biggie is coming. And people think about June. The rest of the Voting Rights Act could very well go away. And if that happens, we could very well see a return to things of old.
Boss, it is a slippery slope, and people have to understand you can't take a holiday from or vacation from fighting for democracy, because the forces on the side are always mobilized, always moving, always thinking. And even if it takes them 50 years to get rid of something, they will take all 50 years to do it.
That's exactly right.
And that's why these midterm elections are so important. We have an opportunity to take back the House, but most importantly, also take back the Senate. It's really, really important that we move forward and we get people mobilized to start talking about the importance of these things. I know the other side does, but we need to do so as well.
Yeah, because the point here is the Supreme Court issued its ruling on tariffs, and everybody was expecting for this ruling on voting to take place, but it didn't. You can bet that is going to be coming down between now and June. Now, the thing about this is it's going to be too late for most places to do anything this year, and that could be by design. Which means what you just said is going to be very, very critical, because the elections this coming November could very well determine whether or not voting rights are in our future or whether we're going to relive the past. So if they come down with this decision in June, it may be too late for them to change lines this time, but they will change them the next time. So we need to have people in place at our state legislative levels, as well as in the House of Representatives and the Senate, so that we can ensure voting rights going forward. That's what's so critical about this year's elections.
Well, folks, let me just make this pitch to you. If you have not read Congressman Clyburn's book, The First 8, you need to get that book and read it, because it's important. It is chilling to see what has happened in the past, and you see these same things that are happening right now. And so I encourage you all, read that book, because you need to know our history in order to know what's ahead for us for the future. Boss, thank you again. Yes, sir.
Can I say one other thing about this? What a lot of people don't realize, they seem to feel that after Reconstruction, after the Civil War, when African Americans lost all their rights, that some big wave came over the country. The three most consequential things that happened during that period of time were determined by one vote. Reconstruction came to an end by a vote of 8-7, one vote. Jim Crow became the law of the land by a vote of 185 to 184. Each one of those things by a single vote. That ought to tell you how important your single vote could very well be this year. It may be the difference in whether or not we continue this trek toward a more perfect union or find ourselves reliving the past.
Well, Congressman, you just preached a whole sermon. Your one vote, folks, means so much. Don't allow that one vote, because you didn't cast it, to put us back into years and centuries of darkness. Thank you again, boss, for all that you do each and every day. Really appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
And now we're going to hear from Congresswoman Lateefah Simon, who represents California's 12th Congressional District. She's a lifelong civil rights advocate. She's focused on justice reform, equity, empowerment. Congresswoman, welcome, welcome, welcome to State of the People.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm great. It's so good to see you, and we are so grateful for you and your voice. You know, you've been vocal about accountability, particularly for these Epstein survivors. And thank you for fighting for them and fighting for all of the folks that they represent. Tell us what justice you are demanding right now, and where do we stand as it relates to getting justice for those survivors and so many like them?
Well, the reason why I'm in Congress is because of young women who have survived a criminal justice system and frankly, an underground street economy that did not see them as human. For 30 years, I've been working with young women on the streets of Oakland and of San Francisco and in the Bay Area who have exuded more resilience and power than the folks who have both abused them and locked them up. The Epstein survivors, they are representative of what we know, folks who have worked on behalf of young women and girls, folks who have been victimized, who are surviving deep and profound trauma, and who have had little voice. So they have taken on what we know is one of the largest human trafficking scandals in American history. I would say the first is chattel slavery, as we know. The reality, though, is if we can't get justice for these women, what about the young women who are on our street corners and our tracks in our communities who are being bought and sold and dehumanized? And so for me, I'm on the oversight committee. I want to shout out Summer Lee, who is also a member of Congress, an African-American sister who was successful at initially getting a subpoena for the files, which really led us to where we are today, uploading really millions and millions and millions of documents that put very powerful and connected folks in the center of this sex trafficking ring.
Well, Congresswoman, we really, really appreciate all that you're doing there and just representing for those who can't stand up for themselves. What the work that you all are doing is so powerful. The fact that you were able to get a discharge petition out onto that floor, voted in the House, get it over to the Senate, and eventually get the signature of the president was nothing short of an amazing achievement. So we really, really appreciate all that you have done and that you continue to fight for those who've been victims, to make sure that justice actually happens for them and their families. So thank you again for being with us tonight. We really, really appreciate you.
Let's keep fighting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Folks, I am really, really overjoyed to welcome to our State of the People conversation, Joy Ann Reid, my dear friend. Hey, Joy, how are you? I see you outside in the Capitol. You all bundled up.
That's right. It's cold out here. We are fighting for democracy. I'll tell you, out here at the Capitol, these cars are really not the noise. But there is so much resistance that is taking place to this thing. This is just one of many events. We know that State of the People, and this is where I was last year, sitting with you guys online, responding to the sort of posts in the union last year. But this year, I am here with Katie Bang, my fellow ex of Ms. Now, and we are at this People's State of the Union event that Midas Touch and Move On are doing. But the most important thing is that people who've been impacted by this regime's policies are speaking up and speaking out, doing so on State of the People. I know that you guys are going to be talking about all of the impacts on Black communities that are vast, right? And so that's what we should be doing on tonight, not listening to the orange lies taking place in the Capitol, but actually listening to the people. And so I think that is what we all should be doing tonight. We already know that Orange Man is going to lie, that he's going to say a stream of untruth within the Capitol, but outside of that Capitol, the truth is being told in all of our communities.
Well, Joy, we are so thankful because you are a truth teller and you have been telling the truth day in and day out. And we really, really appreciate the passion. And man, you are doggone bone. When you sense something, you're going for it. And that's what we need in our community right now. We need that strength, and you give it to us each and every day. So thank you again for all that you're doing.
Thank you. And I just want to say to State People, we appreciate you, my State People family. Everything that we've done for the last year. I mean, think about it, Jamie. We really started this with a response to Donald Trump's sort of first year in office kind of version of the State of the People, of the State of the Union. And we took that on the road, a tour in terms of talking about not just the problem facing our communities, but the solution. What can we sow into these communities and see what can we do to make them better? That's what we've been doing for an entire year, Jamie. I don't know if you can believe it's been a year, but it's been a year. And we are now here. We're still standing. State of the People is stronger and more powerful than ever. So God bless you, my brother, and to Angela and all of the team, and Holly and everybody. Much love. I'm with you in spirit tonight.
Thank you so much, Joy. Stay warm out there in these DC streets.
Bye.
Well, next, folks, we have a gentleman that I call our forever chair. He has been the longtime chair of the Homeland Security Committee. He's currently the ranking member, but after what we do in November, he's going to be the chair once again. I want you to welcome Congressman Benny Thompson, who represents Mississippi's 2nd Congressional District. And again, he's currently the ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you so much. I'll call you Mr. Chair too, because that's what you used to be. But I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm so happy to be part of the alternative to the State of the Union speech tonight.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you know, you have raised the alarms about ICE enforcement policies, and this is not something new for you. You've been raising the alarm for a long, long time, and now we see things that are really, really, really breaking down to the point where you got American citizens that are getting shot in the face because of what is going on right now with ICE. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Homeland Security, what you see, but what you are going to work for to try to correct moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. What Donald Trump has done with he and some of his surrogates is they've weaponized ICE against American citizens, immigrants, and people who just come to this country. By weaponizing, I mean, we've killed 2 citizens for no purpose. We've locked up 5-year-olds. We break into homes without warrants. We wear masks in the street. We don't have cameras, and we say we're law enforcement. And when we do wrong, we investigate the wrong. So there's no real measure for ICE other than what the public will have. And that's why we think it's time to push back. And that's why Democrats here in Congress have decided to throw down the gauntlet and raise the issues that are important to them. ICE is profiling people. See, I don't know what look like it is. They've come up with a with a saying that they can do this. No, you can't. But more importantly with that, Jamie, is just this notion that who can get 47 days of training can become an. Now that's 47 days. Most of the time, we're talking about 4 to 6 months. Now, the only correlation between 47 training is who the 47th president is. So they're trying to make Donald Trump good because he's the 47th president. And so we're going to put all these ICE agents on the street with 47 days of training. In some areas, school crossing guards get more than ICE agents. So we're in trouble. And I think Democrats have thrown the gauntlet down and said, taking this in.
Mr. Chairman, you know, there are so many rumors going on around ICE. And really, we're not going to know the real truth until you get that gavel back and you can subpoena folks from Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and so many others to come back in front of you. Because there's even rumors that some of the people who committed the atrocities on January 6th have been recruited to be members of ICE. What are you going to do on day one?
That's no longer a rumor. That's no longer a rumor. It's no longer a rumor. The other thing that we have with that is, you know, we have a secretary doing all kinds of things all over the country. Rather than taking care of people you are locking up, you buying fancy jets, flying all over the country with your friends, wearing outfits that are not germane to your job. But as important for that is the fact that these are that as Americans in a democracy come to understand. And so what they have done, fabric of democracy, is just throw it away and say, we're going to do it the way we want to. The hell with you all. And so what we have to do is push back. I applaud the people in Minneapolis. I applaud the people in Chicago. I applaud the people in Portland and other cities for pushing back. If we don't push back, then they'll just get worse. And so part of in November is not only will we have subpoena power, but we oversight of those agencies, and we can bring them in and they can give account of all these atrocities that they've been involved in. So I look forward to it. I don't see anything happening. Somebody just told me it's projected to be 3 hours long. I don't hell you can deal with 3 hours of Donald Trump, you know?
Well, Mr. Chairman, let me just say this. I am so grateful for the people of Mississippi's 2nd Congressional District for sending you to Washington, because you have really been a light in the darkness, particularly on this Homeland Security Committee. So thank you for all that you do and that you will continue to do, and can't wait to see you with that gavel again after the November election.
Well, I promise you, if that happens, you'll see a difference real quick.
I know I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, I am pleased to welcome a dear friend. Not only is she a congresswoman, but she's also been a state party chair as well. The wonderful Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who represents Illinois' 2nd Congressional District. She serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and she is one of the people that I turn to anytime that I need to understand healthcare policy in this country. Congresswoman, welcome to State of the People. Thank you so much for all you do each and every day.
Jamie, I cannot hear you at all.
Oh, you can't hear me? Well, we are going to work.
I could hear you up to Benny Thompson.
Okay. Well, folks, let's switch out. Let's make sure we work on Congresswoman Kelly's audio so that she can hear us. And in the meantime, let me move on to my brother from the South. You know, there's some great cities in the South. Charleston, South Carolina is a great city, but I know New Orleans, Louisiana is a great city as well. I'm pleased to welcome to the State of the People Representative Troy Carter, representing New Orleans, Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District, sits on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Congressman, welcome to State of the People. Now, Congressman, you can hear me, but apparently we got you muted here. Let's see if we can get you off mute. Sorry with the audio issues here, folks. I think Donald Trump and Kristi Noem are messing around with our stuff. Let's see here. We got you yet, Congressman? Not yet. Well, while we work out some of these tech issues in terms of sound.
All right, we're in now.
Okay, we're there.
All
he
right.
is.
All
We got Representative Troy Carter from Louisiana.
Well, I am so glad to be with you, my chairman emeritus, my great leader who has done an incredible job for Democrats all over the country. Had a great time being with you the other night as we talked about a little politics in Louisiana, and also as we talk about Louisiana v. Calais, a major case before the Supreme Court that can potentially have devastating impacts. But we're very happy to have you and Ken and others at the helm as we shepherd through these challenging times.
Well, we really appreciate it. And, you know, Congressman Carter, when Congressman Clyburn was on a bit earlier, we talked a little bit about what's going on in the Supreme Court. And you just mentioned this very important case, Louisiana versus Calais, that the Supreme Court is considering that could potentially gut the the Voting Rights Act. I mean, it could cripple the Voting Rights Act and cause all of these black members that we have in the South to potentially just disappear. Their districts disappear. Can you tell us a little bit about what you believe this case, because it's a Louisiana-based case, but what does this case mean nationally?
Well, you know, it's
what should we all be aware of?
It's a Louisiana-based case, and it has devastating impacts on the right for African Americans to choose the representative of their choice. We have 2 African American members. Our demographics suggest that we should have 2. We're roughly 1/3 of the state. The math works as it should. Demographics change, and people have the right to vote who they choose. They should have that option. We know that this could be devastating for 1 or 2 of our seats in Louisiana. And again, we believe we should have 2, but this is bigger than just Louisiana. This has impacts on potentially 18, 19, 20 additional members across the country. But this is not just about Congress. This is about school boards. It's about state legislative seats. This is about anywhere there are districts. So this rolling back, if you will, of our rights has far-reaching impacts on our ability to elect the people of our choice based on whatever criteria we choose. We should have the option to do it based on some degree of science. And the impacts that this will have if the Article 2 of Section 2, rather, of the Voting Rights Act is gutted, it takes away the protections that we have against gerrymandering that unfairly blocks certain segments of people out, be they Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. It's a critical step, and all eyes are watching. And the Legal Defense Fund has done a phenomenal job under the leadership of Janae Nelson, working with a number of other entities that have come together to defend the rights of people in Louisiana and beyond. So thank you for using a part of our platform to talk about this and to keep people engaged, because we know this is happening in real time. And the impacts that this could have are devastating. We went through Reconstruction. We know the pain of what happened, and we know that history that isn't studied is doomed to be repeated. And so we're studying, we're watching, we're being vigilant, and we're going to make sure that through your leadership and the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus and others, that we're staying in front of this and keeping our eyes wide open.
And Congressman, as we wrap up tonight, also tell us a little bit of what are the people of New Orleans, the people in Louisiana are talking about as it relates to affordability? And what are some of the things that you and the members of the CBC are working on in order to address those concerns?
Well, the president said that affordability is a hoax. It isn't real. Well, he also said he hadn't been to the grocery store in a very long time. What an old-fashioned thing. Well, Mr. President, some of us have to go to the grocery store every day because we can't afford to buy enough for the week, because we have to do it every day to make sure that we put a few dollars together to feed our families. This president also said that the price of rice and milk and eggs would go down on day one. They've gone up. He said the price of utilities will go down by 50% when he's president. They've not gone down, they've gone up. It's more expensive to keep your home cool in the summertime and to keep it warm in the bitter cold. That this president continues to act as if what we're seeing with our own two eyes isn't real. Forget what your eyes are seeing. Forget what your purse and your pocketbook are feeling. Forget the hunger pains of your children. Forget the fact that you can't access health care. And listen to the president who says everything is wonderful. Mr. President, it's not. And just because you tell a lie repeatedly doesn't make it true. And the Congressional Black Caucus, the Democratic Caucus, we are going to stay ever present. To use a football euphemism, we're going to stay on his 1 yard line. We're going to check his math. We're going to exercise every bit of our oversight. We're going to continue to use all the tools in our toolbox, as we have done with our great leader, Hakeem Jeffries, who has been successful in three discharge petitions, forcing the hand of the speaker to bring critical measures to the floor for a vote, making sure that while we may be outvoted, we're not outvoiced. We're not outworked. We will continue to stand up, show up, and fight for the American people every single day and not expect or accept any limitations. Failure is not an option. And as Bruce Lee once said, it's hard to be the person who never gives up. We're never giving up.
Well, Congressman Carter, you have just demonstrated why the CBC is the conscience of this Congress. Thank you so much for your service and all that you do. And I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks as the DNC comes down to New Orleans. So thank you again, sir.
God bless you. Fantastic. Thank you for the great work. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. And folks, I think we were able to work out our audio issues. We should now have Congresswoman Robin Kelly from the great state of Illinois, who sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and again is the guru on healthcare, my guru on healthcare that I go to for healthcare related issues. Congresswoman, are you there?
No, me either.
Congresswoman Kelly, can you hear me? Okay, I think she's still having audio problems. So let's now go. We'll go from Illinois to Ohio with our former CBC chair. She is our CBC chair emeritus. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty represents Ohio's 3rd District, and she's a former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I love Joyce Beatty so much because she always keeps it real and she is always fighting for her constituents. So welcome to State of the People, to my forever CBC chair, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Oh, well, we will go from Ohio over to North Carolina. Next, we're going to hear from Congresswoman Valerie Fauché, who represents North Carolina's 4th Congressional District, and she focuses on infrastructure, innovation, and economic access. Hey, Congresswoman, how are you?
Good evening, Jamie. I'm doing well. Thank you for having us on.
Yes, ma'am. It is so good to see you, and thank you for all your hard work and your efforts. And I really want to spend some time talking with you about affordability, particularly in North Carolina. How does federal investment directly affect affordability in states like North Carolina and South Carolina, where I'm from?
Well, as we've talked about it across the country, housing costs are rising, groceries cost more, healthcare premiums are climbing, and children are not able to get the kind of child care that they need. That's felt across this country, and certainly that is the case in North Carolina. And Black families are feeling this crisis acutely because of longstanding racial wealth gaps, and we just have less to cushion or absorb these rising prices. As my colleague said earlier, the president promised that he was going to lower costs from day one, and we know that that is not the case. And on top of that, Republicans have pushed a budget that cut food assistance and made healthcare more expensive, decisions that disproportionately harm Black children, seniors, veterans, and working parents. It's the same in North Carolina as it is in South Carolina and in many states across this country. For Black America, the State of the Union must be measured by whether opportunity is expanding or whether inequality is being reinforced. And so what we've seen with the president's tariffs, we just see that costs are rising and opportunities are not keeping pace.
Well, and Congressman, I know right now you are in the midst of an election. Tell us a little bit about the things that you have done, particularly for your district and your constituents, because I know you've been working hard up here in Washington, D.C. So would love to hear some of the things that you've done in order to try to bring down those costs and really bring common sense back to North Carolina.
So thank you for that, because you are correct. I am in the midst of a real challenge. But let me just say this. My record shows that I have worked hard for the people in my district, and indeed, as it relates to legislation across the state. But I will say to you that in the last funding package, I brought back more than $20 million to this district. 2 years ago, when we had the community project funding availability, more than $12 million. Those funds are addressing affordable housing. They're addressing infrastructure. I think many of us who have worked in local government understand that local governments depend largely on individual property taxes. And so when you're talking about replacing old infrastructure as it relates to sewer systems and water systems, they just can't afford that. And being able to bring back funding as it relates to infrastructure to repair and replace failing systems, yes, we've been able to do that. And just about every county in my district has benefited from those funds, and just about every municipality. So proud of that work, but also proud of being able to work across the aisle to make sure that we're getting consideration, and indeed those taxpayer dollars that come to Washington are going back to our districts. I've been able to get bipartisan legislation passed as it relates to the environment. My Impact Act has passed the House twice, and that's a great environmental bill to be able to partner public and private partnerships such that we're able to research and develop technologies that reduce carbon emission from the production of cement and asphalt and concrete. So yes, I'm happy to be able to be in position to help those in my district and actually across the state and the nation.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for your good work. Folks send people to Washington, D.C. to deliver, and you've been delivering for your constituents. So we really appreciate you and all that you and the other members of the CBC do each and every day. So thank you, Congresswoman.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you. Next, folks, we are going to hear from Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who represents Massachusetts' 7th Congressional District, and she is a national voice on justice and immigration reform. Congresswoman, hello and welcome to State of the People.
Good to be with you, Jamie. Good to be with you.
Well, Congresswoman, you have spoken so eloquently about children traumatized by ICE detention. What are you seeing? And can you just give us a sense of what you have been working on? And when you get back into the majority, what you will do in order to represent those young people and their families?
Sure. Okay. Well, let me just take this a couple of ways. The first is, I'm boycotting the State of the Union because I will not legitimize or normalize the occupant of the Oval Office. Jamie, we understand that elections have consequences. The issue, though, is that you have the House, the Senate, the White House, and I could argue, although the most recent Supreme Court ruling is surprising, but I could say you have a far-right Supreme Court as co-conspirators in your agenda. And this is what you choose to do with the majority. Mm-hmm. What you choose to do with the majority is to exact and enact harm. And so, in my opinion, the state of our union is traumatized, and our children are bearing the brunt of that. And whether you're talking about denying hungry children food by cutting SNAP benefits, whether you're talking about ignoring medical need by cutting healthcare, by cutting Medicaid, not extending the ACA subsidies, cutting healthcare costs in order to fund the unlawful, unconstitutional, racist, and rogue actions of ICE. Whether you're talking about the absence of accountability and justice for the Epstein survivors who are now grown women, but were children, and I've read many of these files because I serve on the Committee on Government Oversight and Reform. Whether you're talking about the push out of Black women from the federal workforce, the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and many of those jobs were held by Black women, and 70% of Black women are the primary breadwinners of their household. So that is a threat to Black women, families, and futures. And the best gift you can give any child is a stable adult. And the reality is that adults are destabilized. They're destabilized because they're fearing their TPS, a temporary protected status, will not be extended. Mm-hmm. Adults are traumatized because their livelihoods are being disrupted. Adults are traumatized because they're being racially profiled and unlawfully detained and deported. Adults are destabilized because the rent is too damn high. Home ownership is further and further out of reach. They can't afford student debt, medical debt, childcare, and all the things. And so I'm boycotting because I believe this administration has a legacy already of great child abuse, neglect, and trauma. And increasingly, because I'm raising a 17-year-old, and I know she and her peers are still recovering in many ways from the pandemic and from a culture of school shootings and mass shootings. I mean, increasingly so, Jamie, a childhood is becoming a privilege for a few instead of a birthright for all. And James Baldwin said, the children of the world belong to all of us. And so although I'm boycotting the State of the Union, what I am doing is I have honorary State of the Union guests. Symbolically, they can't be with us physically because they range in age from 2 months to 2 years to 6 months to 9 years old. And they have either been detained by ICE and in baby jail and experienced medical neglect and harm, or their parents have been unlawfully detained, and that has meant that they've been robbed of advocacy or the continuity of a parent. And even if we've been successful in reuniting them with their parent, that trauma still exists. I mean, think of the children waiting at a school bus stop, running when they saw ICE presence. I think about the children I met in Minnesota, their parents telling me that their 7-year-old wanted to know why when they went to school to play with their best friend, they were suddenly gone. I had another parent in Massachusetts whose 6-year-old is begging her mom to let her classmate move in with them so that they can be safe. We are adultifying our children, but I have to acknowledge we have long had a history of state-sanctioned violence, the separating of families, and childhood trauma for Black America. That legacy does exist in this country, especially when it comes to police brutality. I mean, we're talking about Daquan Johnson of Michigan, and so I have long been focused on dismantling the mass incarceration crisis, a for-profit system. The ICE system is also for-profit incentivized. In the same way that corporations benefit from the incarceration of poor folks and Black folks. And again, there's so much to unpack there. And many of our prisons and jails are inhumane conditions, right? And the ICE detention facilities also, those corporations are incentivized by the unlawful detaining of our immigrant neighbors. And you can't say this is about law and order, because when you are denying people's constitutional rights and due process, it's not about law and order. You can't say it's about public safety. This is a campaign of terror. And when I ran for Congress for the first time in 2018, I ran, one of my main issues was on a platform to defund and abolish ICE, because I don't believe we should be doing immigration enforcement through the Department of Homeland Security. And ICE has only been in existence since 2003. So I just gives me no joy, Jamie, that all of the harrowing things that I forecasted have come to pass.
No, you're right. You're right, Congresswoman. I mean, I just heard one story that just absolutely broke my heart about a 6-year-old who was left at home. Her dad went outside to go grab food. ICE grabbed him. He said, "My 6-year-old is in the house." And they said, "We're not here for your 6-year-old." Took him. And she puts on her shoes and starts wandering around the town looking for her father. Just think about, I have a 6-year-old, and I just think about that, and it breaks your heart. But that is what we are doing right now in this country. And there's some folks who believe that that's okay. In no place is that okay. That is not right.
Why
we have to do something.
Okay? Because they're othering who that harm is.
Yes.
Who that harm is coming to. But the fact of the matter is, Jamie, is that no one is exempt from this harm. This is a campaign of terror that is sowing chaos in our communities. And as it has been proven, although Black and brown communities stand to be the most racially profiled, surveyed, and to be victims of this violence, we have seen that children have been victims of this violence. We have seen that grown folks have, Black, brown, indigenous, AAPI, and white people. This campaign of terror does not care who is in its wake. And in the same way that the KKK cannot be reformed, another, masked militia group, I do not believe that ICE can be reformed and that this has anything to do with training and protocols. So my symbolic guest for the State of the Union that I am actively boycotting because the state of our union is traumatizing our children. I wanted to lift up children, again, as young as 2 months old, Eleni, Daphne, Juan Nicholas, and Suche.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you again for being a voice for those who cannot stand up and be a voice for themselves. We really, really appreciate your passion and everything that you do. And thank you for, boycotting this thing and not legitimizing the hate that is coming from the White House. So we really appreciate you.
And the anti-Blackness brother on steroids. Okay, so
yes.
One thing I know for sure is he's not going to say anything that speaks to the health, the wealth, the joy, and the upliftment of Black people and the Black family. But I remain on that case unapologetically so. Okay, appreciate y'all.
Okay, appreciate you. Talk to you soon. And folks, next we have one of my dear friends on the Hill, Congresswoman Shontel Brown, who represents Ohio's 11th district, and she serves on the Agriculture Committee. And I hope one day she will be that chair of the Agriculture Committee. First time making history in Ohio. Well, Congresswoman, thank you for being on State of the People. And I want to chat a little bit about food and SNAP specifically. SNAP is under constant pressure. As someone who grew up on food stamps and understands the importance of that program, tell us a little bit about what is happening to food assistance programs under this administration and with these MAGA folks who are controlling Congress.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say a couple things. I want to say thank you for having this and giving me an opportunity to speak on this platform. I respect and admire and adore your leadership, my brother, and thank you so very much. Putting me after Ayanna was dirty. No. You know, she is fierce, she is fabulous. That is my sister in service. But I just applaud. You have an amazing lineup of folks coming up to speak to so many issues that are impacting our community. And we talk about SNAP. I'm the second highest ranking Democrat on the Agriculture Committee. And I do sincerely hope that one day I will be able to hold that gavel to reverse course on some of the most egregious cuts that have been made in the program's history, the largest cuts in the program's history. We're talking to the tune of $186 billion. And for what? To give tax breaks to billionaires who will not even notice the money. You want to cut $6 a day for people that are just trying to make ends meet. And I spoke about this from a very transparent place during one of our committee hearings when the Republicans on the other side of the aisle attempted to make these cuts, and before they actually went through, to kind of hope that they would understand that the portrayal of the people that they say are utilizing these programs are far from the reality. Folks like my mom, who just wanted to make sure that her daughter, me, had access to a parent while I was struggling with petit mal seizures when I was in school. That was a lifeline that helped her be able to do that. And she continues to be a productive citizen of the United States. But their narrative is different. It is that, you know, it's a welfare queen, or it's a guy in the basement playing video games. And the reality is, so many people that are receiving food assistance, Jamie, they're working. You know, they say they want to increase work requirements. Well, I would argue they want to increase paperwork requirements. These cuts are going to impact 90,000 people, and that's on the conservative side in Ohio, because, you know, 1 in 5 in my district alone depend on SNAP, and 1 in 3 of those individuals are Black. And so I think that these cuts are going to have just devastating effects on so many communities. We're talking not just specifically Black communities, but veterans, our seniors, our children will be impacted. Everyone is going to be impacted by this, and that will have a ripple effect on our grocery stores, which will have a ripple effect on the entire food industry.
Well, Congresswoman, we are so proud of you and so grateful that you are fighting for all of us on these issues. And I want folks to understand that, you know, agriculture policy doesn't just impact rural communities. It impacts all communities, urban communities, suburban communities, and all. And you are just such a great representative of all of those communities and that fight, standing up and fighting for all of us. So we really, really appreciate you.
And I think because you know, agriculture touches everything. It's the one committee that touches everything and everybody every single day. I mean, from the housing that we have to the food that we eat to the clothes that we wear, agriculture touches every part of everybody's life. So I'm sorry, I just had to get that in.
No, that's an important comment, because I think a lot of people, when they think ag, they just think, you know, they think of a farm and that's it, right? But you're right. It touches all of us in every aspect and in every way. So thank you again for all of your hard work and your efforts, what you are doing for your constituents, but also the fight that you're doing for folks that live outside of Ohio. You know, just folks in South Carolina, folks in North Carolina.
I love me some South Carolina.
I know you do. But I really appreciate you, Congresswoman, and can't wait to see you again sometime soon.
All right. Give your
Thank
family
you.
my love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now, folks, we go from the Ag Committee to the Appropriations Committee. We now have next Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, who represents New Jersey's 12th District and is one of the longest serving Black women in Congress. And she is a dear friend. She is a fighter. Congresswoman, welcome to State of the People.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yes. Well, Congresswoman, immigration and healthcare are colliding for families. And I know it's something that you see from your perch on Appropriations Committee and your representation of the folks in New Jersey. What has to change over the course of the next few weeks and months as we move towards the midterm elections?
Well, I'm going to hope that more Republicans see the light of day and work with Democrats to make sure that access to health care is a reality. We see some folks moving away from worrying about whether or not the president is going to challenge them in a primary or threaten them in any way, shape, or form. And they've moved in the right direction with us. Now I need the Senate to do that. And then I need us to move forward. Immigration, listen, there's so much that has to be done there. First of all, ICE needs to be doing what it's supposed to do legally and constitutionally and not intimidating and harassing communities and people and having poor little babies, youngsters traumatized for the rest of their lives because they've seen their parents abused or even they've been abused or used by ICE. Immigration, we need to make sure that there is, first of all, an understanding and appreciation of those who've been here for years and who are contributing to our economy. There ought to be a way that they can continue to be here, can continue to be here safely, and can move into citizenship at some point. We need to beef up the whole apparatus for citizenship because part of the problem is such a backlog. But we need to make sure that the Department of Homeland Security and ICE and Border Patrol are doing their jobs legally. I personally believe that ICE cannot be reformed. I think ICE has to be just done away with, and a new apparatus needs to show up, and it needs to show up in a different department. I believe that DHS needs to be dismantled because I think that it was conceived and created right after 9/11 at a very difficult time. Well, that time isn't here. And now that entity, which was supposed to keep us safer, is now causing us to be less safe and to have our communities in chaos and in fear while they're spending hundreds of $millions with untrained people who are dealing with just innocent people. Look, do what you got to do to those who commit bad crimes. Get them out of our streets. And if they don't belong in our country, get them out of our country. But we see what's happening right now to innocent immigrants, to innocent American citizens, and to just innocent people who want to show up and make sure that people are not being harassed. So Jamie, when it comes to immigration and when it comes to this administration, just in general, it has failed on every level that is humane. It's made us less safe nationally, and it has made us disliked internationally. But this is a government of by and for the people. And when I see what happened in Minneapolis, when 50,000 people wouldn't leave no matter what ICE tried to do, government had to make some adjustments. If we do that state by state, in this country, we will have Donald Trump and his bullying shown for what it is. It is a bluff, and we must call it.
Well, Congresswoman, I am so grateful for you and the compassion that you bring, but also the common sense that you bring to that we need to our federal policy. So thank you again for your representation. Thank you for all your hard work in the Congress.
Thanks for having me. God bless you.
God bless you. Next, we have my brother from Nevada. He sits on the Ways and Means Committee. Congressman Stephen Horsford, former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, represents Nevada's 4th District and, again, serves on Ways and Means that oversees tax and trade policy. Congressman, welcome to State of the People.
Well, thank you, Jamie. It's great to be on State of the People, and I'm right off the floor. I am here to make sure that we hold this administration accountable. For more than a year, they have been stealing from the American people, literally picking their pockets through these tariffs, which are taxes that Americans have been paying. And it's literally hidden taxes on everything from groceries to inventories that are stocked up on small business shelves. If you're a family with young children, baby formula, the cost of housing, everything has gone up under this administration after they promised that it would go down. And not only has it not gone down, Jamie, it's gotten worse. And so he can get up here and lie and say the economy's great, but the reality is the real state of the economy is what people feel. And they feel that the costs are higher and that their life is harder. And that is something that we're fighting to make better as House Democrats under the leadership of Hakeem Jeffries.
And Congressman, I know that you see, when you think about what your committee, the oldest committee of the House, the Ways and Means Committee, when you think about what your committee looks at, tax, trade, healthcare, these are all issues in which that one word, affordability, is hitting over and over and over again. What would a real affordability agenda look like from a Democratic Ways and Means perspective? When you all are back in the majority, what are some of the things that you want to hit on? Because you're right, Donald Trump is going to do nothing but lie tonight. We know that. For 3 hours, he's going to be on a lying fest. But what is your agenda to inspire the American people to seek the change that we know that we need in November?
I'm so glad you asked that, because it's not enough for us just to talk about what we're against with this Trump administration, even though it's chaotic, it's cruel, and it's corrupt. It's about what we're for on behalf of the American people. One thing I'm for is returning the money that this administration stole from these tariffs that are taxes. That's why I've introduced a bill called the Relief Act to actually automatically refund that money back to the people who paid it, and to make sure that we're bringing down the cost. But as you said, affordability is the central issue that families in Nevada and all across the country are grappling with. And while we focus on reducing the cost of everything from the rent to the mortgage to healthcare to childcare to utilities, all of those have gone up. We also have to increase people's wages by actually making sure that work pays for itself and rewarding work and not just wealth. We have to incentivize and provide more support for families to get better paying jobs through job training and education. This administration has tried to defund education, defund workforce, defund apprenticeship. Under House Democrats and our majority, we will make sure that we're investing in skills and opportunity, and not just in the workforce, but to support our small businesses and entrepreneurs, those who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into starting their own business, and to make sure that they have the tools, the resources, the capital to start and to grow those businesses, particularly Black women who have been pushed out disproportionately by this Trump economy. Over 300,000 Black women have lost their job as a result of the administration's policies just in the last year. And now we're seeing unemployment over 8% in the Black community. That is why we need policies that center work, wages, and wealth, and that actually create economic opportunity for everybody, and not just the very wealthy and the big corporations that Donald Trump and these Republicans in Congress capitulate to.
Well, Congressman, we really appreciate the fight. We appreciate you laying out what the Democratic agenda is going to be, what the CBC is going to fight for when you get the majority back, because it's going to happen. because people are going to go to the polls. They're going to vote. They're going to take family and friends with them. And we are going to take back the House, and we're going to flip the Senate. And we can't wait to have you as one of the leaders on that House Ways and Means Committee in the majority. So thank you for all that you're doing.
With the power from the people, that will happen. The power is in the people. And when the people show up and use their power, there's nothing that we can't do, and there's no change that is not possible. So let's continue to organize. Let's continue to show up, stand up, speak up, and fight back. Hold the line against this administration and get ready to lead with the House Democratic majority in 2027 and beyond. Thank you, Jamie, for having me on.
Thank you, Congressman. Take care. And, buckle up for the lies you're going to hear tonight. Folks, tonight you heard from leaders who are not spectators to history. They're actually shaping it. The Congressional Black Caucus began more than 50 years ago with a simple mission: to speak for communities that too often went unheard in the halls of power. Tonight, with 62 Black members serving at the start of this Congress, the most in American history, that mission continues. All of the members who join us this hour, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your courage. And thank you for standing in the gap for the people. The state of the people is resilient. The state of the people is determined. And the state of the people demands action. Now, we're going to turn to some solutions. My dear friend Karen Finney will lead us into this next conversation, digging deeper into the issues that will define not just this year, but the future of this country. Karen, the baton is yours, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. The power is in the people. I heard the congressman say it, and I love it because we know that is so true. So thank you, my brother, for getting us kicked off in this anniversary of State of the People. It was about a year ago. We said, you know what? Instead of listening to lies, let's tell the truth. So
it's a whole bunch of lies tonight, Karen. We're going to get a whole bunch tonight.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, I'll let you go on and do it there, Jamie.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. So look, folks, thank you so much for joining us. And as we did last year, and as you heard Jamie in the conversations in the first hour, we know that tonight there's going to be a lot of gaslighting going on at the Capitol. I actually live on the route that the vice president takes to the Capitol. I just heard him drive by. It was more of an honor, frankly, when it was Vice President Kamala Harris driving by. But I want to talk about what this next hour is going to be and the purpose here of State of the People, because while there's going to be gaslighting over there, here we're going to tell the truth. We're going to talk about what matters. We're going to talk about the state of our people. And we're going to talk about what the people who are on the front lines are doing to protect our rights, our freedom, make sure that we protect access to opportunity, get a better economy. Times have been rough. Let's be honest. And so we want to tell our truth in our voices, in our stories. That's what State of the People is all about. That's what this next hour is about. And so we have a wonderful lineup for you. And I'm just checking to see if we've got our first, we got our first group. I just want to roll out just a couple of points to you for you to hear about what's going on. Over 600,000 Black women have been sidelined in this economy. We know that healthcare costs are up. We know that there have been cuts to Medicaid that are harming our families. And we know also part of what's happening is this layered effect, right? So maybe you got your Medicaid cut and groceries are too high and gas is too expensive. So all these things are layering on top of one another, and we're the ones having to bear the brunt. And the other thing that we're seeing happening, we had the big ugly bill, and that also impacted our communities in the fact that it gave billions to billionaires, less money in our pockets, literally taking money out of our pockets, but also it meant less money to the organizations that do work in our communities to try to help make sure our kids have food, that we have health care, that we have childcare, that we're bridging those gaps. So this conversation tonight is going to be about that work that is still going on, because I want you to know that the fight continues. You are in the fight. We are the fight. We are the state of our people. It relies on us, and it relies on some of the people that we're going to be talking to tonight. So joining me to start, we have a great panel. I've got Melanie Campbell, who is the president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. I've got, hey Mel, good to see you.
Hey there.
I've got Judith Brown Dianis, who is a brilliant civil rights attorney, also the former executive director of the Advancement Project, and one of the forces behind State of the People. I'm just going to add that, so we're telling the truth. And I think we've got Demetria McCain also joining us, and she is the director of policy at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And so let's start and talk about and tell some truth about what's happening with elections, because I'm sure folks we've seen all kinds of craziness. Let's be clear. This last year has been chaos and pain. It's about a president who is, consolidating power and using that power against and trying to take it away from the rest of us. And when it comes to voting, we've heard conversations about nationalizing elections. We saw, felt like stormtroopers rolling in, nationalizing elections. We saw, felt like stormtroopers rolling in Fulton County, Georgia, essentially to take the voter information because the current occupant of the White House is still trying to adjudicate 2020, although I think that's really about creating the predicate to take over elections in 2026. But we've also seen, and Judith, I'm going to start with you because folks have probably seen in the news lately conversations about the SAVE Act, which has been in Congress. It was on the House side. It's now on the Senate side. And let's talk about what's real about the SAVE Act and what's not real about the SAVE Act, because we're hearing a lot of the same disinformation and misinformation that we hear every once in a while about, all these myths about who votes and who doesn't vote. And so let's clear it up and let's talk about the SAVE Act.
Sure. So thanks, Karen. First of all, I can't believe it's a year. It has been a year since we did that marathon for the State of the Union. So it's so good to continue to bring information to our people. So the SAVE Act, what people need to know is this thing is called the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility Act. And it is supposed to be what Republicans are saying is that this is about voter integrity and this is about voter fraud. Now, we need to set the record straight because there is no voter fraud.
No.
And they say that it's about non-citizens voting. Non-citizens are not voting. There are penalties, stiff penalties for voter fraud already. So this isn't about that. What this is about is that this fight started when one Barack Hussein Obama was elected president. All of a sudden, they started talking about voter fraud. All of a sudden, they started passing voter ID laws, restrictive voter ID laws. This bill is actually even worse than a lot of the voter ID laws that we saw. It actually was tested out in Florida. What the law does is that it requires proof of citizenship. So this is about show me your papers. What they want you to do is have a birth certificate or a passport or your naturalization papers in order to register to vote. The Brennan Center says that 21 million people do not have that identification. And so they wouldn't be able to register to vote. For married women, what that means is I remember when I got married and I changed my last name, I didn't do it at first because I was like, that's a nightmare, right?
Right.
What it would do is my birth certificate says Brown. My driver's license is Judith Brown Dianis, right? And so I wouldn't be able to vote just showing my actual driver's license.
Right.
So it's that. It also takes people off the rolls. We need to understand it removes people. So this isn't, again, It's not about voter fraud. It's not about eligibility. It's about rigging the game so that they can win the midterm, so that he can continue to inflict harm upon the American people.
And I want to there's a headline from the New York Times not too long ago, just really said it all. It said, quote, Republicans braced for losses, push more voting restrictions in Congress. So, I mean, I feel like that says it all. And before we move on from this, I just want to point out one other thing that you said, because we also know these purges on the rolls from state to state. It can be real complicated to then figure out if you're still on the roll, how do you get yourself reinstated on the rolls? And we've heard, particularly in red states, we've heard authorities say things like there's certain kinds of names that they look for when they're purging, and people who are actually citizens end up getting purged when there's no reason for them to have been purged. So tell us, Judith, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, because what I want to talk about also is how we're fighting it. And Melanie, I know you've been very involved in the fight against the SAVE Act, which, I'm sorry, but anytime you hear those jokers on the other side talking about anything to do with integrity, it's a lie coming, okay? Because there's no integrity in what we see going on over there. But, Melanie, you're part of the fight, all of y'all, but you're part of the fight to protect us against the SAVE Act, because it will not save us. So what do we need to know about what our options are, what the fight looks like right now to push back on the SAVE Act?
Thank you, and I'm going to apologize because I'm in my home state of Florida, and that's why I only can stay on a few minutes because I got some family emergency happening. I didn't want to miss just getting on for a few minutes. But hey, what we need to do is call the Senate. What folks need to do is call their U.S. senators, because it passed in the House. It's in the Senate. They need to call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. Check to make sure where your senators stand, your U.S. senators, your two senators stand. Make sure that you let them know that you want them to vote no. And the name saved, all that was on purpose, right? It sounds good. We're going to save people, we're going to save the vote. But at the end of the day, being in a state like Florida, where we've always had so many problems, especially as far back, Judith, as you well know, the 2000 presidential election, when the Supreme Court snatched that victory away from Al Gore. The reality is, folks have never stopped doing it. Judith made the point when that black man was elected, and oh my God, twice they were elected a black South Asian a vice president. It really is about that. And so they're going to do everything they can. And so we have to organize ourselves. We also have to push to try to stop this. And if we don't stop it, we always will have to out-organize. We'll have to overperform. And that's not going to be easy. I think that it's also to educate the community, which is when they thought we wasn't going to show up after 2010, when they passed all those voter suppression laws after President Obama got elected the first time. We showed up, but as we all know, those of us that been out here a long time, they made it, the long lines and all those things. They're going to throw everything at us. We have to do all we can to provide that. But the best thing we can do right now is stop it in the Senate.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you. I know you wanted to be here, and we really appreciate it, especially because for the 1 year
anniversary. Great to be here with you, ladies.
Love you, and thank you for being here. You've been with us from the beginning, so thank you for coming on through.
Yes. Y'all know my brother, so just pray for my brother.
We sure will. Prayers up. You got it. We got it. And thank you, Mel. That's a whole other issue we know we're dealing with, which is healthcare, but we're going to get to that in another segment. So, Demetria, here's what I want to talk about. I just want to talk about the SAVE Act before we then talk about the Supreme Court, because I think one of the things that's important for people to understand, they're trying to attack our right to vote on so many levels. And I feel like people may worry that or think, wait, haven't I been here over and over? Every year we seem to hear about these attacks on our voting rights. But in this particular moment, what strikes me is, we've seen the current resident of the White House essentially try to amass power, right? I mean, we've been trying to sue him to push back. He's been basically, I feel like the lesson he learned from Jan 6 was not a lesson in democracy, but a lesson that said, well, I've got to overpower the Constitution and overpower the system so no one can stop me. And voting is one of the most important ways that we can put a check on his power. And so as we think about, we're in a midterm year, we see these, measures being passed, and with the SAVE Act, what are the chances in the Senate of this actually passing? And let's say if it does, I'm assuming the courts are going to be another option for us.
Well, I tell you, the courts have already kind of spoken a little bit on this topic already, Karen. And it's in the form of the fact that the president tried to get this through by way of executive order. And so the court, struck that down. So I think everybody needs to know how persistent they are when it comes to voter suppression, because we had it in the executive order, then we had the SAVE Act. Now this is the Save America Act. And also pending is the MEGA Act, just Make Elections Great Again Act. Again, a fake name for a problem that doesn't exist, as Judith made very clear. And so there are folks who've been believing in states' rights. And states' rights has not always, we haven't voted well when it comes to people who fight for states' rights. But this is clearly an attempt for the federal government to take over. And they're taking over because things have been successful somewhat, right? Things haven't been perfect, but this is the 61st anniversary of Voting Rights Act, right? We're headed up there now. And so we had Bloody Sunday, March 7th, almost a week from now, right? 61 years ago. But I want listeners to understand that we cannot stop, to your point, Karen, because guess what? March 7th was Bloody Sunday. Those folks came back March 25th and walked again and made it across that bridge, despite having been beaten. And so we're not even at a point of, we're talking about beatings, right? So we've got to fight with our senators. You've got to look at people around your neighborhoods and your cousins who live in another state where their senator might be about to do the wrong thing, and call that phone number that Melody mentioned, because those phones matter. I have walked up and down those halls in the Senate offices, and those little young people answering those phones, sometimes those phones are burning up, and the senators know it when the phones are burning up. So again, that number is 202-224-3121, and that's what we've got to do, because this is because people have been voting. All those people at the 7 p.m. segment that you all had, those people are there because people could vote. People could pick representatives that they wanted to represent them. And that's what this is about. That's what they're trying to stop.
Well, and that's also when we talk about the things that are happening, maybe if you're living in a state where you're hearing about redistricting, that's what it means. And I think it's so important that we, connect all these dots, that the reason we're talking about voting and why it's so important, it's exactly what you just said, Demetria, is because we get to pick who represents us. People, they don't get to pick who their voters are, right? And so we've got to keep fighting this fight. And so, Demetria, I want to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court, because obviously the LDF has played a huge role in a very important and consequential case. And just briefly, before we have to shift gears here, I think it's important that we touch on it, because it's going to be big news coming up in the months to come. And I want people to keep an eye out for what we believe is going to be a consequential decision. And again, to your point, the courts have I know it doesn't feel as satisfying perhaps sometimes as passing legislation, but the courts have been so important, and such an important place where we've had some real victories. And actually, the cases against the Trump administration, I think it's over 80% effective. So I think that's important for us to remember. And I say that because I want people to know that our efforts are working. It doesn't always feel like it, but it's working, and we are winning.
That's right, Karen.
So
that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, like I just referenced a case a little earlier, right, against an executive order. There are cases on education that we're winning. And be clear, it is the Senate that helps choose who these federal judges are. And so there we go again. We're right back to the voting situation, right? And so, the Calais case is a case out of Louisiana that our president, Janae Nelson, just really argued very well recently. But it's important to understand this. She argued that case recently, but we had already argued it months before. And so the Supreme Court said, hey, come back, and I want you to argue this again. And folks, it's very rare for a case to be argued more than once at the Supreme Court. I mean, I think maybe during the Brown case, during the Dobbs case. So this is a monumental case. And even though it's based in Louisiana, it has an impact across the country because it's all about Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Right. We've already lost Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which was that pre-clearance part where if election officials were changing something, they had, in certain states, they had to get sign-off from Department of Justice. Well, this Department of Justice, we sure don't want them having to sign off on anything.
So tell folks what's in Section 2, yeah.
Yeah, so Section 2 is where we go when we have problems, when we see racial discrimination in voting. And so that is the import of this case, is that this could potentially impact Section 2, which is our ability to say, hey, there are some racial discrimination issues in voting. And so if that goes away, that's a problem. This particular case was about redistricting in Louisiana, and it was successful in the past. And to that extent, Louisiana was able to finally get a second U.S. representative from a Black community that was able to elect somebody of their choice, right? And then here these folks come back, these non-African Americans, as they call themselves, filing this case. And so here we are with that. And so we are anxiously waiting this term for the Supreme Court to make a decision on this. Now, I'm a Texan. I'm from Texas. I was there at all those hearings in Austin, Texas, where we had to deal with that situation in redistricting. And that was a debacle. And they're happening other places in the country right now. And so this is all, again, related to this whole package, let's say, of the takeover, of the attempted takeover of voting for our people.
So Judith, I want you to weigh in on this as well, and this issue of the courts. From this conversation, we're gonna transition and go back big picture about some of the other issues that are impacting the state of our people. But obviously we wanted to start with this issue because it's so important. So when we think about the different threats, we heard Melanie talk about we're going to have to overperform. What else can we be doing? So there's lawsuits, there's overperforming. I feel like there's also making sure we know, check our registration, making sure we know where
definitely,
our
definitely check your registration, because as many people as we're trying to get on the rolls, they're trying to take them off the rolls. If you have moved, update your registration. If you have changed your name, update that and make sure that you have the right ID. Look at the dates. The other things, that there are particular states, like you were mentioning, Karen, where redistricting has happened. In Virginia, you actually have to vote on the ballot initiative to allow redistricting to move forward so that we can have fair elections, so that we can fight back against the Republican takeover in states like Texas. So there's a lot of things to do to get involved. Maryland, we're still trying to push redistricting in this state. We have a state Senate that doesn't want to get it done. At least the leader doesn't. So let's keep pushing. So yes, so this is a moment for everyone to be calling your elected officials all the time. Their jobs are on the line and we're their bosses. So they need to hear from us on a regular. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. And I just want to underscore that point, because particularly, they should care what we have to say all the time, but it's an election year. So they know that we get to hold them accountable in just a few months if they don't do what we want them to do. So you're right. The more people can hear from us, and we've talked about this before on State of the People, those folks in those offices, they are tallying every single day how many calls, how many emails. Let's be honest, they're looking at social media traffic too. So making our voices heard, it can feel like it doesn't matter, but it really, really does. And I just want to keep underscoring that for folks.
Karen, one last thing, if I could. It's really important for people to understand this is not about partisan politics. This is about race, right? Racial gerrymandering. They may say in the news that it's just partisan, but guess who's suffering? Guess whose districts, just looking at Texas, guess what kind of districts were targeted when they were doing that? So this is about race.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, so much. Keep up the fight. Thank you for fighting on our behalf. All right, so now we're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about some of the gaslighting and the promises that have been broken and make those connections. And so I'm joined right now by Taifa Butler. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And if not, I hope she'll tell me. She is the president of Demos, one of my favorite organizations, which is a public policy organization. And whether you know it or not, she is out there advocating for the policies that will make our lives better. And that matters. And also one of my favorite people is Sosa Osa, who is the founder and principal of Awning Strategies. She is the master of disinformation, always keeping us straight to understand, what the attacks are that are coming for our people. But also, Sosa, you did just a fantastic job trying to put together this overview of what we're seeing from this president. And I think, one of the things, y'all, that strikes me is, from day one, it was so clear there were attacks coming, bam, 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 rapid fire, right? And part of the point of that was to exhaust us. Yeah. But there's some patterns in it, and so I'm going to start with you, and then I'd love to get your, take on this. It's really, a lot of it is about power, and a lot of it is about consolidating power, hoarding power, how you use power against people, how you use power to benefit your billionaire buddies. Some call that the Epstein billionaire class. I like that. Because, but let's talk about that, Asosa, because you did a beautiful job really laying that out. And I think it's important because one of the things we know that's real important for our folks to understand is how each of these pieces line up and actually do impact us in ways we may not be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you are right. And we just saw that in the previous section with what's happening with the Voting Rights Act, right? Just the number of examples that we have of the rich and shameless just rigging system after system after system to try to stay in charge when nobody wants them there, right? They're attacking Black political power as a front to truly just seize all power, to seize illegitimate control. And so to your point, that is what we are seeing. We're going to be overwhelmed as a tactic.
Yeah.
Right. We are going to be overwhelmed as a tactic, exhausted as a tactic, scared as a tactic. Right. To try to dissuade and to try to protect. And all the while, right, they are breaking promise after promise after promise, just like you said. Like when we look at who got paid and who got protected and who got played, right? Mm-hmm. It is very, very, very clear, right? Elon Musk got $70 billion.
He got paid,
right?
They got paid.
Exactly.
Right.
What did we get? We got tariffs.
We got
$3.4 billion cut from Black communities in just 8 months.
That's right. And I think it's so important, Associate, that you said that, and I saw that in and Tiff, I want to talk to you about this because I think sometimes what folks aren't always tracking is that those cuts to our communities and those are to programs that actually benefit our people. So it means, I'm dealing with this with members of my own family who are saying they got their Medicaid benefits cut, groceries are too expensive, gas is too expensive, but the charity in their community that actually helps with food assistance, well, they faced cuts this year. So they're not as able to help people. And I'm sure from a policy standpoint, we're seeing that over and over in lots of different ways, that the cumulative effect is part of what's really hurting our communities.
Yeah, if I could jump in here, because this is right in our wheelhouse as Demos. And we've always talked about the intersection of economic and political power, right? And knowing the two things that keep me awake every day is the fact that this demographic shift is happening. And it is no surprise because we've been signaling it for decades, right? And so does the right understand that in the next 2 decades, we're projected to be majority people of color. No one race or ethnicity will have a majority. That's one trend. The second one is that at the same time, Black and brown people are projected to have 0 to negative net wealth in the same amount of time, right? So not only do you have an apparatus with this administration that is undermining our economic power as a people, but is also undermining our political power, our ability to access the ballot, our ability to have a representative and accountable government who understands our issues and are speaking to them. And to your point earlier, Karen, not gaslighting us, telling us, we hear you, we hear your economic pain and hardship, and we're going to solve it. And this administration did nothing in the last year and a couple of months to be able to address the material conditions that are faced by Black and brown people, particularly Black people every day. And so to me, it was disingenuous, right? To sort of put a narrative that we are going to help solve the economic populist, concerns, but then also work overtime to fill the pockets of the already wealthy and corporations who've been, funding this administration's campaign, and also again perpetuating the same economic theory that if we cut taxes at the top, it's somehow going to trickle down, and we already know that doesn't work.
We know that doesn't work. We've seen that news over and over again. I want to touch on one other topic here before we have to go, and that is, Associate, you pointed out, and it's something we're seeing. I saw this in the polls for the first time, and focus groups the first time Trump was in office. White grievance politics. Trump has really the way that they're utilizing this as a tool, not just as a strategy to divide us. So I wonder if you would talk about that a little bit, because I know we're seeing it in lots of different ways. And then I'd love to get your take on this, because we know in our communities, racism is a top concern. And that is not something that gets asked in polling for the most part. But when you ask people, they will say, our folks are saying, yes, I am concerned about the impact that racism is having on my economic health, on my well-being, on my future, on my kids' future. Can you talk about that, Asosa? Because I know you looked into this a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. This is a president administration that uses racial chaos as political strategy, just fundamentally, right? When we saw 2 innocent people get killed in Minnesota within 9 days. Within 9 days, we saw a raid on Fulton County. Right, we saw Don Lemon and Georgia Floyd get arrested. We saw this man post horrible photos of the Obamas online, right? All in an attempt, and then right after, no one was talking about Minnesota.
That's right.
He will make sure to stoke division and white grievance whenever he can. That is what all of these acronyms are about that he is so obsessed with: DEI, CRT, what have you. Right? It is about, can I distract and move folks with my own culture war for long enough that they don't see us shamelessly gaining illegitimate control and power every single day. And that's why we need to clean house. We've got to rewrite these rules from the very top, because you can't say that you are for our people, our folks, when you're cutting $200 million from HBCUs, trying to talk about your funding HBCUs.
Right.
Talking about that Black women love you. Meanwhile, you're cutting $40 million in maternal mortality. Right.
And that's having a real impact on Black women's lives.
Exactly.
Type, I want to come to you real quick too, because we also know this attack on DEI has had a real material impact on our lives, on our jobs, on, again, playing, this race baiting against each other. I want to give you the last word on this.
Yeah. And Karen, if I could just offer that, as much as we know that this administration has been leading with a very a racist, anti-Black agenda, I also want to make sure, to Asosa's point, that we don't fall for the okey doke and get distracted. Like, we need to ensure that as we talk about the kitchen table issues, that we're addressing the issues of housing, which over half or nearly half of Americans are saying that it is unaffordable. So what are we doing about the kitchen table issues of housing, of healthcare, of wages and income, which again is disproportionately low for Black people? Also, what are we doing about food and groceries that continue to go up and is expected to continue to go up? So again, the policies, from tariffs to cuts to the social safety net to the increase in taxes that we will all bear in some way because of the tax cuts for the rich, like, those are the things that we need to hold electeds accountable for. And I want to make sure that as we're talking about our solutions, that we know at the end of the day, wages won't go up without worker power. You know, housing and all these other things will not get better without us building worker power, so they can negotiate, they can collectively bargain, they can hold their corporate employers accountable for their work schedules and all those things. So again, I just want to make sure, as we think and talk about power of the people, that we keep all of these core economic issues, from the wages to wealth, clearly in our sights, because there are solutions. And again, I'm excited to continue to work with all of you to advance those.
Well, thank you both so much for what you are doing. Thank you for joining us tonight on this sort of 1 year anniversary of State of the People. And we look forward to continuing this conversation, because again, this is about how do we continue to build Black political power, because that ultimately is the best way that we can fight back and get the leaders we deserve and the policies that we deserve. And so right now, though, as we're talking about what are the forces, what are the issues that are shaping the state of our people, the state of Black America right now, we're going to be joined by Brandon Wolf, who is from hey there, Brandon, who is from the Human Rights Campaign, and from Carolyn Jackson. And I'm so thrilled to have both of you, because this is, and I should mention, Carolyn, you are Public Policy Director at CASA. And so I want to talk briefly about, because there are a couple issues, and I feel like so many of these issues are interconnected. I mean, we're talking about the economy, when we're talking about healthcare, and we're talking about consolidating power at the top and how that's being used against us. Let's start and talk very briefly about the chaos and the terrorism in our streets that we are seeing with ICE. Because we know that people of color and our most vulnerable populations, as people like to say, we are the ones being targeted. We are being racially profiled, and that is on top of other harms that are coming to within the Black community. And so, Carolyn, I'm going to start with you, and let's talk about that. And then, Brandon, I'm going to come to you on that, because I know HRC is also involved in this work.
Yeah. Karen, thank you so much for having me on. Please call me Kat. It's so great to be here and be in community with all of you all. You are absolutely right. ICE is invading our communities. ICE is terrorizing our people, murdering our people. They are locking people in cages. They are forcing families to just live in a constant state of terror. And it's not new. I think it's becoming more visible, and it's ramping up over the past year, but it is not new. And as Congresswoman Presley spoke about earlier today, right, like we've been working since Trump 1.0. We have been in the weeds, making sure, since the existence of the agency, we have been working tirelessly to dismantle it, because that's what they've been doing to our communities. I love that we're talking about this today, because one of the things that we struggle with, when I say we, right, the country struggles with, is recognizing that immigration is a Black issue. Yes. Immigration is a Black issue. And I know the focus has always sort of centered around non-Afro-Latinos, but it's really, really important to know that our people, as you just described, we face this double jeopardy, right? Mm-hmm. Of being more likely to be pulled over, and then not only face the criminal consequences, but then face the immigration consequences, right? So our folks right now, in so many ways, are on the front line, are disproportionately impacted. We see the administration has canceled tons of different relief programs, temporary protected status, a number of different refugee statuses that allow people to have protection. Right. What does that mean for us? There's going to be a big increase in undocumented folks, specifically Black undocumented folks. The cancellation of TPS for Haiti, we could go on and on. We're in a state of crisis.
But I just wanted to add on to that I think it's important for people to remember, those are legal pathways. That means people are doing it when people say, well, I want the people who do it the right way, that is the right way, actually. And then, Brandon, the other piece I want to bring into this, because I'm so glad Kat brought this up, it also means this profiling. Our communities are more criminalized, right? We're under investigation more. We're being surveilled more. And what that means in our communities, the fear and the anxiety, and also the race baiting. And the other place where we've seen, I know HRC is working on the immigration issue, so I'm going to make this a twofer for you, because the second piece of this we have to talk about is what's happening to the LGBTQ community, where it is also, again, all this pitting everybody against each other and saying those people, right, which is also part of this distraction that's meant to keep us from paying attention to the fact that he is gaslighting us. So I would love for you, Brandon, to kind of talk about the work you're doing at HRC on both of those fronts, because it's so important.
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciate what Kat said about immigration being a Black issue. It's important to name that immigration is also very much an LGBTQ plus issue, right? And what we've seen from this administration in particular is the targeting of LGBTQ plus asylum seekers in this country, people who have fled countries where they face violence and often even death because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, to come to a country that has said it would be welcoming to them. We've seen this administration target them, whether it's Andre Hernandez Romero, the gay makeup artist who was sent to CCOT in El Salvador because they didn't like his tattoo, or the two Iranian asylum seekers who the Trump administration is trying to send back to Iran, knowing that they will likely face imprisonment or death because of their sexual orientation. This administration has targeted LGBTQ plus immigrants, asylum seekers over and over again. So of course, we have to say that immigration is an all of us issue. Every single time the administration targets an immigrant population, it impacts all of us. And I appreciate that you're naming the impacts to LGBTQ plus people across the country more broadly, because this administration and the right wing broadly know very well how linked all of our liberation is. It's clear to them how linked we are because they come after us all at the very same time. And I think they do that for a couple of reasons. One, because the communities that they're targeting, Black folks, immigrants, brown folks, LGBTQ plus people, those are communities that historically they've been able to demonize and dehumanize, to distract the country, to use us as scapegoats to generate fear, so that they can claw power back into their grasps. But I also think they do it because historically, those are the very same communities that have met violence and oppression with joy and defiance that are not tameable. We are populations that cannot be controlled. And our vision of what's possible in this country shines so bright so often in the face of that hate that we actually dare other people to imagine a world that's better for them too. That is what they are most afraid of. And I think this moment calls for that defiant joy and contagious courage. And it is what is scaring Donald Trump and his enablers so much.
Brandon, I want to underscore that. And I love that you said that this our uncontained joy, they can't contain us. That right? Because let's be real clear, that's been a big part of what this has all been about. They've been trying to contain women, they've been trying to contain people of color, anybody who's not like them. They want to contain us and keep us in a little box because we might just be too much of too much.
That's right.
I love that you named that. I love that you said that. Kat, let's talk real quick, as I know we're going to have to go soon. I'm watching the clock here. I know there are real practical things that I know in my community we've been told in terms of like, if you see something happening, it's take your phone, record it, ask the person, who can I call for you? What other, we're talking about voting. We're talking about, and this I guess is for both of you, I should say, we're talking about building political power, Black political power. How can we build our political power in this moment to fight back against this hate and division and really just this terrorizing of our communities?
That's such a great question. So there's so many things that we can do, and we are doing all of the things. It is quite incredible. First and foremost, know your rights. If you have not taken a know your rights training, it does not matter what your immigration status is. You make sure that you sign up for one, whether it be at CASA or one of the many other organizations that are hosting know your rights trainings. And you know what to do if you have an interaction with ICE. That is absolutely critical. Look online and sign up and do that today. There's also tons of actions that we can take. We are seeing this movement in Congress where folks in Congress are saying, not another dollar. Call your members of Congress and say, do not give ICE or CBP another cent, and help give them the courage that they need to keep fighting for us to shut this program down. Last thing that I want folks to do is make sure that you are getting involved in your local and your state advocacy campaigns. There are so many happening. And while we may not be seeing those wins on the federal level, they are happening locally. And I have to give a shout out to Maryland, who just banned 287G agreements, limiting law enforcement officers from being able to formally partner with ICE. I shout out to Maryland because I don't think it's a coincidence that Maryland has the largest Black caucus in the country, formerly led by Delegate Janelle Wilkins and now Delegate Scott Phillips. But the bill was also signed into law by our first Black governor of Maryland and only governor in the country, Governor Westmore. So shout out to them and their leadership. This is a community victory, but Maryland is not the only place where action is happening. So whether it's at your state level, your local level, your municipal level, if you can go to your city council, reach out. There are protections for immigrants at every level of government. We've got to just stay involved.
Thank you so much, Kat. Brandon, last word to you here. Underscoring, we're gonna make our joy. They can't contain us. But what else would HRC recommend? So we are protecting our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ plus community, and that intersection where it comes into play with immigration.
Yeah, so I would say three things.